Hey, deserving listeners, 90 Day Fiancé. Let's watch.
Huh? That's exactly how I thought the shoot was gonna go. Like, I knew he wasn't gonna try to actually teach me. He wasn't even, like, telling me things. It was just him and Alex. And
so I totally get that she's upset because he was talking down to her in a way that he will do, which is pretty awful to watch. But the way she's framing this, she's saying that he didn't really teach me. And I said in the last episode that not everyone knows how to teach. Just because someone knows how to do something doesn't say anything about their ability to teach, particularly while they're doing it, right? He's in the process of trying to do a job. And when you're a photographer, there's a lot of things to keep track of. There's so many different things you're concentrating on. And if you have someone next to you that is like, what's that? What's going on there? Teach me. And especially, again, if you're not very good at it, then you're not going to be very good at it. Now, that doesn't mean that justifies the way he was talking to her, putting her down. So there's that. But her complaint, I think, is, I don't know, a little unfair. So I guess I can see where both of them are coming from, but the way that they're reacting is something that needs to be worked on. The way they're trying to solve the problem.
And I mean, I thought it was going to be easier because Alex is my friend. So, yeah, just, the fact that he doesn't even care right now to even, like, hear me out or hear, like, what I don't know. What
we can all learn from this, that when there's a conflict with your partner, it's almost an automatic conclusion that we will come to that the other person just doesn't even care. That's a very common conclusion that we will make. And of course, if that's true, then the behavior, the conflict, the incident, the event becomes, a lot more hurtful than it would be if you didn't think that, right? So that's something we can learn from, because I don't think it's true. I don't think he doesn't care. I think he does care generally about her feelings, but because of, and we didn't see the whole interaction, but it looked like she was asking a lot of questions, and maybe the two of them set up an expectation that just wasn't clearly something that he was capable of doing, like I said, because he's really focusing on his work. And then she said that picture looks bad because she doesn't have a chin, right? And she says that right in front of the individual who's having the pictures taken. And for Ed, I think he feels insulted by that, maybe particularly given his issues, maybe, I don't know. And then he starts to give her the cold shoulder, she starts to react, and then he starts to insult her. And that's when I think we can point to his behavior and say that that's not cool. But what would have been more, I think, healthy on her part would have been, how about you teach me when you're not working, right? Like, teach me everything you know about a camera when you don't have the pressures of actually doing a job, right? Which requires a lot of concentration. Or she could have said, okay, well, this isn't going well. He's not a very good teacher, and he's clearly preoccupied with what he's doing. So I'll just hang back, and maybe if I watch, I'll pick things up as I observe. Because there's a lot of things that he's doing that you could just literally watch someone work. I don't know how good he is, but he seems to have a lot of the prerequisites of someone that can do this kind of work. One is that you, as he was doing, and I don't know, my wife would be able to comment more on this than I would because she's been on both sides of this equation, but I would imagine, based on what I've observed in my wife, is that a big part, in fact, maybe the majority of what a photographer needs to do in these situations is make the subject comfortable. Because when the subject is not comfortable, you can't take a good picture of someone that's uncomfortable, unless that's what you're going for, but that's not usually what you're going for, right? So you really want the individual to be comfortable, to be relaxed, to be open to your directions, and a big part of that is doing everything you can to preserve their ego by not saying things like, ew, imagine you're at a photo shoot and you're not a professional model and someone's taking a picture of you and they'll look at sort of, okay, how did I do here? Oh God, these are all terrible. Like, just imagine if someone, not only are the pictures terrible, but the subject has a problem. Like, it'd be hard, right? So he was doing a lot of things along those lines, and so he reacted, and then she reacted against that, and then they were off to the races regarding the conflict. She walks away, which probably is a good idea given the circumstances. But then she concludes he doesn't care, and the fact that he's not following me is because he doesn't care. I think it's because he's hurt. I also think that her accusations last week were a very good I mean, she knows him a lot more than we do, but it is in line with at least my observation of him, which is that he's a bit of a show-off, which means he's insecure, and he finds security and self-esteem through showing off. The stickers everywhere, the way he acts with people, I think there's that. And so when he's insecure, particularly, he will resort to that. Also, he was maybe flirty, and I think Liz was saying that he will do that sometimes, which is uncool, obviously, and hurtful, and a problem. But again, probably a result of immaturity and or insecurity on his part. Like, he knows that he can be charming in his way and get attention, and if he feels bad about himself. So this is another jumping off point we can use for ourselves. And this isn't super common, but it's common enough that I'm guessing a good percentage of you have noticed this about yourself. When you feel insecure about your relationship, or even just yourself, some of you, based on percentages in all likelihood, have a tendency to start to flirt as a way to try to justify or make yourself feel better. So a common presentation of this would be you are feeling distant from your partner, and you find yourself looking at your former partner's Instagram page, or even maybe DMing them or something, or having impulses in public to look a certain way to garner certain attention. And it's not terribly dysfunctional, but it is a barometer. You notice it, and it's one of the things you might want to note. Like, when I start to have these urges, and I've had clients like this actually, where they would come in and they would just have this huge compulsion that would cyclically arrive, that they wanted to flirt or secretly go online and start flirting on, in websites where you can be anonymous, that kind of thing. And it'll feel very important to do it in that moment. Like, yeah, this is what I'm going to do, or, ooh, this will be great. But in reality, what's happening is the individual is feeling rejected, is feeling hurt. And so if we can address the hurt through functional ways, then you won't have to resort to things that actually are dysfunctional, are against your integrity, are deceptive and lying in the direction of cheating, if not full-blown cheating, that could actually harm, because really what you want is closeness with your partner. You don't want to be with these other people, and you particularly don't want to threaten your relationship with your partner, right? Now, case-by-case basis, there's a lot of reasons why any kind of behavior like that would arrive. But so maybe Ed has a tendency like that. I don't know.
Whatever.
Alex, great job.
Hey, thanks. You're supposed to teach Liz too, right?
But when she's like, oh, she doesn't have a neck, I'm like, yes, she does. That was the one where I'm like, what are you talking about?
Well, I get what she's saying, like kind of hunched over.
Yeah.
No, I see what she sees. I see that. I'm trying to stay out of it, but he didn't seem to be listening to her when she was giving her opinion. And
okay, good. So she feels the triangulation. She feels the pressure or the subtle request from him to justify him to be against Liz. And she's like, well, okay, I could see that. I could see that I don't have a neck in that picture. So then we hear her saying, I'm trying to stay out of it, which is good. I give thumbs up to that, because so often on this show, that's not what people are trying to do. They get sucked in either through undifferentiation or their own issues, and then it makes matters worse. So she might actually be kind of helping, because his whole premise, the whole reason why this whole thing got started between him and Liz, was because she said that she didn't have a neck. And then just very lightly, she says, well, it kind of does look like I don't have a neck. What's the big deal?
I think she's just frustrated and wants her opinions to be heard and valued. But I do know that they do fight. And if you're going to have a healthy relationship, you have to understand your partner's feelings no matter what.
I probably took it the wrong way. Yeah, so
Okay.
I probably have to apologize.
You probably always should apologize.
Yeah. I get kind of, self-conscious of my work, and
Oh, so many good things. This is great, actually. It's unfortunate that it happened, but this is great. So we see functional, you'll hear me talk about triangulation, functional, dysfunctional. Functional is when people are triangulated, but it actually, as an outcome, results in resolving the conflict. And it's unclear what you're supposed to do if you're in her position to make it functional. But one of the things that you want to avoid, which is what she's doing, is to become fused with the conflict and absorb the anxiety. In triangulation, the anxiety and the conflict will move around. So what she was being invited into was because there's a conflict between Ed and Liz, and so she's being triangulated into that. So if she's on my thumbs, so it's really hard to make a triangle. Anyway, she's being triangulated into it. She was being asked to bond with Ed against Liz. But one, she's friends with Liz, and two, she seems to be differentiated enough to understand what is at stake here, to see the bigger picture. She's being asked socially to bond and to side with Ed, but she can see the bigger picture here. It's just like, well, what good would that do? I don't know what she's justifying, what she's basing it on, but anyway, so she does that, and then he is now invited to start to think more flexibly. Imagine if she were to totally agree with Ed, like, yeah, Liz is a jerk face. In fact, she does that to me sometimes. And then she starts to triangulate Ed into her conflict with Liz. And then Ed is like, yeah, I'm right, she's wrong. Okay, so who knows what would have happened, but that could have happened. That would have perpetuated the conflict. But what she did was to stay in contact. So the triangle is still happening, but she is being differentiated and not getting wrapped up in the drama, even offering some pushback, right? And some lightness to it. And then he's invited to think, oh, maybe I was wrong. And then he says, oh, maybe I have some apologizing to do. And then she says, you definitely have some apologizing to do. And then he says, yeah, you know what? I get insecure when I'm at work, which is what I was proposing, that his insecurities, when he's insecure, he does what you've seen him do so many times. I think one of the main reason why people hate him so much is because of the way he reacts to his insecurity. Let's rewind this.
But I do know that they do fight. And if you're going to have a healthy relationship, you have to understand your, partner's feelings no matter what.
I probably took it the wrong way. Yeah, so
Okay.
I probably have to apologize.
You probably always should apologize.
Yeah, I get kind of, self-conscious of my work, and
Well, yeah, it's a product of who you are. And it's
Yeah,
hard to hear
yeah.
that someone doesn't think it's
Yeah.
right or good.
So then, as he's talking about his insecurities, she should be a therapist. She has the instinct anyway. Maybe she is. But she also detects, I think, that, okay, good, he's acknowledging this, but I don't want him to beat himself up about it because it's normal. It's okay to have your insecurities. So, yeah, it's of course your work is important to you. And to understand, I think that for Ed, if he can feel okay and not be ashamed of himself, it'll be more likely that he'll be able to apologize and notice it in the future so that it won't happen again.
Good.
yeah. I think I hurt Liz's feelings. I think, I kind of corrected her in front of Alex, and she didn't like that. Great job.
I'll see you guys soon.
Yeah, I mean, just think about how many people on this show are able to do what Ed is doing right now. And if I were just to react, I would just say that, but I feel like I have to have this caveat, just like, yeah, I know a lot of people hate him. And honestly, I don't really get that. There's a lot of people on this show that would, in my mind, deserve just as much, if not more, hate than him. I don't think anyone should be hated, so there's that. But I mean, I get. Well, honestly, I remember thinking this in the first season he was on. I remember thinking, like, yeah, there's some problems. Absolutely. I mean, the way he treated Rose was deplorable. There were so many examples of it, but there's a lot of that. I mean, that's what this show is based on. I would say most of the couples on this show have some pretty bad behavior anyway. But I call them as I see it. So what we're being shown here right now is a lot of differentiation, a very rare example of someone who immediately resolves to apologize and so the other thing is possible is that he's not really being authentic, because he can be that way sometimes. He'll apologize when he's not really sorry. And so I don't know. There's a possibility that there's some element of that. But there's a good possibility that it is sincere, and there's reasons to believe that because she helped him to come to that conclusion. And so how often does that happen? How often does Angela get there? It's like, oh, you know what? I was probably a little tough on Michael. That was unfair. I feel like maybe she has done that once or twice, but with very little intervention from a triangulated third. He's able to say, I should apologize. Yeah, I probably hurt her feelings. I was probably too harsh. That was unfair of me. So it's good. It's, good for their relationship, good for Ed, good for Liz, good for everyone.
Okay, definitely.
Okay.
All right, take care. She's a Gemini, I'm a Taurus. We're both very headstrong, and sometimes in a relationship, it's not all roses. I guess I got to pick up this all by myself.
When one uses any framework of understanding personality, whether it's astrology or something else, it's important that you use it for good and not evil. And one of the ways to use it for evil is to say, well, this is who people are. I've decided this is your personality. I decided this is mine. One, that's limiting, possibly, particularly with this, because anyway, point is it could limit you and make you feel like this is the only way you can act because this is what somebody said about this sort of person. Anyway, and two, and I've seen people do that, and I don't know what he was saying. It didn't sound like this, but it sounded like it could have been that he might be justifying his behavior based on what he believes to be the framework of personality. To say like, well, I'm Capricorn, and thus you gotta deal with the fact that I'm gonna be an a-hole to you all the time, right? Which is, I don't think, a very helpful way of looking at things. If you use the model of personality for good, like, well, I'm Sagittarius, so that means that I have a tendency for this, and so my challenge in life, what the stars and the sun have provided me, the Greek gods have provided me, is a choice to give in to the impulses of this personality, or to actually do something different that is more functional in my life. If you have that framework of understanding personality, then that is a better chance of working out, of course. All right, well, that does it for that episode from this week. Everyone out there, please take care of yourself because you deserve it. You really, really, really do.